Hello, listeners, and welcome to the second episode of Worst Movie of the Year of City of Geek podcast. Bob here, and I wanted to pop in with a little bit of introduction before introducing today's panelist and the movie itself. Just want to note that we are a new podcast, and although we spun off from a different one, we're using Zoom recordings for the first time, kind of getting used to that since we're all in quarantine. So it's a new approach to record and to learn how that works. So I do apologize about any sort of audio issues that might come from that. I was told last week's episode of Erotica sounded okay, but if any issues, let me know. And also, as this is a new podcast, we are getting used to the new format and getting all the details together. This is the basic setup here at Worst Movie of the Year. Look, I love my bad movies. I watch just as many as the worst of cinema as I do the best. I like to watch them. I like to talk about them. I like to share them with others. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this podcast, is sharing my love of bad movies with other people. Now, this is a part of a different podcast, but I'm not going to make every member of City of Geek sit down with me every week to talk about bad movies, especially if they don't have the interest in it. So I'm hoping to get a different group of people together every week to talk about these movies. It could be people who've been on before, or friends from here, people maybe don't even know who just request to be on this week's episode. So if something you're interested in, send me a message at cityofgeek@gmail.com or through Facebook, either be City of Geeks or the Worst Movie of the Year. And of course, like both of those at Facebook. Go to cityofgeek.com to see everything else that we're working on with reviews, retrospectives, our regular podcast, which is more of a general love of movies than it is a particular movie, like in this case. But yeah, send me a message if you're interested in that, or if you have any comments, suggestions, requests to look at movies. So the basic setup of this is we're picking a random year and then going to the worst movie of that year on Metacritic. Some things aren't on there, such as, say, Mac and Me from 1988 or Veronica from last week. Started the podcast by looking at something that broke my original rules, because that's such a bad movie and such a great jumping point. You wanted to look at it that way. So we might look at some polls, requests, and this and that for other titles. Something you're interested in hearing us talk about or talking about with us, just send me a message over there. Hope you enjoy the episode. Let me know if there's any issues, and over to the panel and the movie. So just so everyone at home can know whose voice goes to who, why doesn't everyone introduce themselves, and then we'll start talking about date movie. Eric, why don't you go first?
Hello. Oh yeah, there's no video. Hey there, Eric Morgret. I do come at you from Strange Eons Radio and filmmaker and Crypticon Seattle Film Festival. I run that with help from Bob.
Yay! And, Mr. Amos?
Michael Amos. I'm just some dude that works at Microsoft, and I occasionally get up and run around in my underwear in front of a screen.
For Rocky Horror, taking that comment. Could to every movie he watches. He did it during Cats, and it was very embarrassing.
Going to the theater with them's rough.
Yeah.
More or less embarrassing than Cats itself.
Butthole cut?
Is there any other?
Hi, I'm Michael Kehoe. I'm a local filmmaker and actor.
And he's been Mike has been in several films that have featured at Crypticon, so it all comes around.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, and I'm Bob Foster, one of the founders of City of Geek, with another podcast that this one is offshoot from, along with the various reviews we post online, written in video. So you can find that at cityofgeek.com. And if you are mentioning podcast, the Strange Eons that Eric mentioned is another wonderful podcast, so you should subscribe to that as well.
Thank you.
And though we mentioned Cats a few times in here, we're actually not talking about Cats. We were talking about 2006's date movie, which is it has 11 on Metacritic, which is a very, very low score, the lowest one of its particular year, which I think is generous.
Yes.
Just a little background on that. It came out in February 17th of that year, and it cost about $20 million to make and made its money back in opening weekend. Went on to make $84 million across the world. So unfortunately, it is a failure of a movie, but not a money failure, because we did get a bunch of similar movies after this. It's an epic movie, Meet the Spartans, and superhero movie until they eventually died away, thankfully.
Wow. My first note, and I don't know, anything I say after this feels a little superfluous. Movie's hot garbage, man.
Yeah.
No. This movie is cold, like month-old garbage.
Both in the stale jokes that were stale at the time, let alone watching it, 14 years later.
It's a rough watch. I
yeah.
I regret every second of it. and it made quarantine just feel 20 times longer in the hour and a half or whatever I was watching it. But I did notice that violence means nothing to these people. They just kill people randomly, and no one bats an eye. That was the weirdest thing to me. Just death is nothing to these people. And that was really fucking weird to me.
One of my notes is, when in doubt, punch something. Like, we made a reference, and now let's beat up Gandalf. Because why not?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Bob, I kind of hate you for making me watch this.
You chose to do this, sir.
Yeah, but I blame you.
You actually messaged me. I actually asked Eric and Mike, and you actually messaged me to be on this.
Well, going with the violence, it's a strange notion to parody date movies and make violence a strong element of those, because we all know how prevalent violence is in your average Sleepless in Seattle or While You're Sleeping kind of movie. They're just filled with horrible violence and people dying everywhere. So
you remember Sanji Bullock pushing someone against pushing Bill Pullman in front of the train and while you're sleeping?
The end of
totally
Meet Joe Black, where he just rolls over the car.
Yeah.
But, and of course the most famous part of When Harry Met Sally, when Sally just went on up and punched Harry in the dick.
And then referenced something that was 20 years old at that point. Of course, that movie itself is referenced pretty directly, and for one of the things they didn't actually mention the title of when they did it. So many things like, "Hey, we're referencing this. I'm Hitch. Do you get it? I'm Hitch." I wanted to note actually I didn't start writing notes to about an hour into the film, and my first note was the same thing that Eric messaged me when he was watching. Is like, this still has a half an hour left. At one point, I paused. Like, I should go get my notebook so I can write down some of these thoughts because I want to forget them. And thinking maybe I had 15 minutes left, maybe 5 minutes, and no, we're about 55 minutes. It's a very slow 85 minutes with 10 minutes of credits.
Yeah, I got about 5 minutes in before I started angrily messaging you about the movie. My first comment was, nothing says hilarity like a fat suit.
Yeah,
had one.
Yeah.
What was Allison Hannigan doing? I mean, she was in the middle of How I Met Your Mother, so she wasn't desperate for anything. It's like, hey, I'm on hiatus from recording that. You know what I want to do? This deeply, ridiculously offensive, nasty film. All right.
I mean, what, did the American Pie money run out? I mean,
maybe. I wonder if it was like a contract thing where she was contracted one more movie to somebody or one more project in some way.
It's 20th century,
and made her do
Jennifer
it.
Coolidge is in there as well, so
yeah.
I can see them being like, you owe us a 3-movie contract, get in this fat suit.
At least Jennifer Coolidge was the one person that seemed to actually try. Yeah, I was like, thank God for Jennifer Coolidge, because she's actually trying to do something. I know she's just doing a parody of Barbara Streisand's character from one of the Meet the Parents movies. But
I didn't know this was referencing Meet the Parents. They weren't very on the nose about that.
Yeah, it was
Can you milk me? I think that was vague, but it was there.
Those little hidden references that they just glaze over.
It's a very subtle film. It's a very subtle satire. It's
subtle like a brick to the face.
I like how they just kind of like very gradually slipped in the whole My Big Fat Greek Wedding references.
Yeah.
Like just very oblique.
Just abandon them immediately. They're like, The Bachelor? Anyways.
Although that did provide me
movies. Here's a one-off joke. Something you remember from culture. We're just gonna say it exists, and then we're gonna move on. Like Napoleon Dynamite at the beginning, or
yeah, there was a lot of, well, it's been 5 minutes. Let's throw another disconnected other movie reference joke, and then never talk about it again.
The one laugh I got early on, I mean, there's 2 or 3, actually, in the stretch.
Yeah, I think I had 5
almost
marks.
Not even 90-minute runtime of this movie. With really long credits, too. It was like 12 minutes of credits.
Of that booty song.
Padding.
Booty.
But the violence at the bachelor party thing where he pulls out the shotgun to eliminate, okay, that kind of got me to giggle once. Like,
yeah.
I think the closest I got to laughing was when they did the very obvious stunt double for the motorcycle gags.
Oh,
yeah.
It's like It's weird
I'm
that like I
convinced
literally had
this
to write
movie
down the
was.
amount of times I laughed. Sorry, Mike. Sorry.
I'm convinced this movie was made by stunt doubles because they just hired actors that vaguely look like celebrities, and so I'm in it that there's a conspiracy of stand-in actors who are like, we need another movie. Let's do a parody movie where I could play Brad Pitt.
Yeah. So am I the only one who thinks that the main dude kind of looked like the Great Value version of Topher Grace?
That'll work.
Might have been just me.
Oh, that'll
Yeah.
work. I was worried too, even for a movie like this, when the Michael Jackson joke started, I'm going, oh, where are they going with this? At least that ended well. It started off like, oh, God.
Even they
this
can't
is not
lower
a movie
themselves to
you.
that.
This is not a movie you trust to take an offensive joke and make it funny. It's just going to stay offensive most of the time.
Yeah, with the movie with the 5 minutes of a shitting cat that never ever stops, but not following through in the pedophile joke. That something.
I felt like that was like when they drip water on your forehead to drive you crazy. That's what that cat fart scene was with me. At first, I was like, all right, we're gonna move past this, and then it just kept going. And I got to be honest, I contemplated taking a short dive out the window.
So was that actually the first of the we need to pad the runtime jokes in this incredibly long 90-minute movie?
Might have been, because that scene just goes. And
I think it's the first one that I noticed.
goes.
I would go right from the beginning, man. The dance scene in the street
yeah, right.
just kept going.
You gotta play all of Milkshake like twice, and then maybe another song or the Pimp My Ride gag. Every possible thing. I think there's an entire episode of Pimp My Ride was in that, right?
I think they spent all their money on licensing. I think that's where the $20 million went, was just licensing, because there's just the camera's awful, everything's overexposed. It just looks like a steaming pile of garbage. But for some reason, they have Lil Jon in there, and it's like watching your friend's student film. You're like, this is bad. How did you get Terry Crews in this? I don't understand.
Somehow. Owe someone a favor. It's like the thickest movies build up on people owing each other favors.
Also, too, you got Fred Willard in there, who can be hilarious, and he doesn't need anybody to write him good stuff. You just point a camera at him and say, go. And
what did they threaten Fred Willard with to get him to be in this?
I think if they just let him go, he would have been at least the dumb part of him doing the weird martial arts. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. But he's funnier when he says stuff. But no, those were not his lines. I refuse to believe that he improv much of anything.
Especially seeing him in Christopher Guest things with Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes.
Like they can play off each other. We've seen in other things.
Yeah.
Like he is a very funny person. Just let him go, and then you can see him kind of pushing through the lines as best he can, even with maybe slightly less disdain than Eddie Griffin had with stating his lines, as he obviously did not want to be there.
Right.
And,
Which is,
a
plus
like a
for
Coen
him.
Brothers? Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just saying that's a plus for him that he didn't want to be there. Like,
he's not even going to try and hide it, And this is coming after, I think this is after Undercover Brother, right? Yeah,
I think
another satire he did that was
2002.
actually good.
yes.
I think probably the best comment on this movie actually came from my partner, who said, "This is what happens when people who don't understand how comedy works try to make a comedy."
I'll go with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Very true.
Scary Movie was moderately successful. Let's go ahead and do that with everything.
Yeah, with two of the writers of that. Well, if I remember right, I didn't actually look it up, but the story that goes with there being 6 writers for their Scary Movie, and this being 2 of them, is that these guys wrote like the first draft, and then the Wayne brothers picked it up and said, all right, this has an idea, let's fix this, and made a semi-decent movie out of it. And then that series went to shit immediately too.
Yeah.
But this is like more in the style of the Shriek, if you know what I did last Friday the 13th style of thing, came out around the same time.
Style is doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
Yeah, but it's a far cry from from the Zucker brothers, works. Like you can watch Airplane and watch Naked Gun without any understanding of what things they might be referencing, and still find it funny because this works on its own, and everything they try and do here just is based in here's the thing that you know, and some people that is humor for whatever godforsaken reason. I saw this on opening weekend, unfortunately.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if any of y'all had seen this before.
You okay, Bob? Do you need help?
Christ.
My friends and I went to see it, and I told them in no way possible was I ever going to pay for this piece of shit. Even though I would drag them to like the worst horror films of all time, but then again, we all like those here. I made my friend pay for my ticket, and I still complained the entire time. And I was really shocked how much my friends actually kind of liked it, especially Stephanie. I know she's not listening to this, so but she really, really liked it, and we had a big argument on the way home of me just ranting about how shitty this film was.
Jeez. And that's the thing. If you're sitting out there listening to this going, oh, come on, it's probably so bad it's good. It's like, no. It is so bad it's good. Shocking Dark, Paganini's Horror, Raw Force, Robo War. I own all of those on Blu-ray. I have no problem with crappy movies being entertaining.
You're keeping the Vinegar Syndrome alive, sir.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean,
it's will rise from the grave and shake your hand.
Yeah, I mean, this was basically, shoehorns, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, or Meet the Fockers, Meet the Parents storyline for plot, then shoehorn in a joke that is basically a direct reference to a better movie, then a crap, we need to pad the runtime, here's 90 seconds of a cat shitting, and then
only 90 seconds.
repeat. I mean, I didn't get the stopwatch out for it, but it was clearly over a minute. But I don't want to say that it hit the 2-minute mark. But either way, it was interminable.
Yes.
Much like all of their pad the runtime things was just, it wasn't funny to start with, and then it never got to the point where, okay, it has reached funny because it has become a running joke. No, it's just like, we're going to blast this at you continuously for a long period of time, and then we're just never going to reference it again. So it never gets to the point where you can think it's funny. The
master of that is The Simpsons. The perfect example of what you're talking about there, which I think is so funny, is, comedies in a group of threes. Yeah. Then there's also comedies in sevens, which is what The Simpsons tend to do. And if you really know The Simpsons, the scene in Sideshow Bob is in the stepping on rakes.
Yeah.
That goes on for a long time and reaches that point you're talking about where it's like, okay, this is kind of dumb. Okay, this is frigging hilarious.
Yes.
and then they
do that.
And then they reference it later in later episodes.
Yeah, well, and I think the problem with this movie is jokes are all about setup and execution. This movie just does do no setup. It just goes straight to the execution. It's like an ADD child. It's like, look, I don't want to get through dinner to get to dessert. I just want dessert. And so this movie just rushes into execution, and you're left being like, why was that funny? You had zero setup with that. You just launched right into it. I have no idea what this joke is.
The setup is knowing the reference, and the joke is referencing.
Well, I mean, the guy
reference.
Coming when he was ordering food or whatever, I mean, that went on forever. And it just starts in the middle of the scene of him just being like, oh, yes! And it goes on for so long. And you're just wondering what's happening. You're like, did I miss a scene? What's going on here?
When did they say When Harry Met Sally before this?
They don't execute jokes so much as they euthanize them.
That's a perfect review for the movie.
They just take them out and Steinbeck them. They're like, look at the pretty flowers. You're gonna be all right.
Nice.
Yeah, but on what you're saying about what Michael is saying about like the cat there is like, and the thing with that, the cat keep coming back is that's one thing it did repeat, because apparently the filmmakers really thought that Jinxie was it. That some poor puppeteer had to make and perform that cat. As they kept bringing it back and even his own credits, like, your joke. Yeah. That's one time they did try and continue a joke, but it's not a good one to continue.
and they're not even really continuing the joke. They're just continuing the cat. And the cat is doing different things. So it doesn't really establish anything.
Right. And that dumb joke that they started him with, cat crapping in the toilet, that can work. Dumb and Dumber has the same kind of thing with one of their characters, but in that movie, it's funny.
Yeah, there was actually a setup to it.
Exactly. Yes. And a reason.
Scatological humor and have it still work,
Yeah. and a payoff. All
Yeah.
the stuff was in that one. None of that was in this cat pooping video.
It comes in, it says it, then it moves on.
I'm just waiting for the 10-hour YouTube cut of it.
Oh God.
If someone has the patience to do that. But what I want to know about what Eric said earlier about like sometimes you get so bad it's good. It's like one reason I started doing this project was this of course only the second episode is sometimes stuff at the bottom is really hilariously awful. But unfortunately some of the stuff that's hilariously awful ends up being pushed up a little bit because of how bad it is. It gets this is fine because it made me laugh. I audibly groaned when I pulled up and I was like, all right, see where the random number generator comes up with 2006. What's that? Date movie. Shit. Second episode is one I don't want to watch. And because even though no one else was around, I still was honest and kept it. It's like I could just go, but might as well just get it out of the way. And see, maybe it's the thing after this for 2006 is I can't remember right now. Material Girls, which I'm not looking forward to watching either. That comes back around. But something like So Bad It's Good, say Cat, which you mentioned earlier, was actually the 27th worst movie of last year on Metacritic. So it's gonna be a while before we talk about that, unless I do a request or enough people ask or something like that. If people actually listen, so.
Well, I think the line between a bad movie and so bad it's good is earnesty. The ones that are so bad it's good, they're made earnestly. They wanted to make a good movie. They put everything in there to make a good movie, and unfortunately, they're just not. They didn't have that skill set. This movie is kind of like Birdemic, where it's a joke, and they're going to keep laying on that joke, and it's not funny because it's not played earnestly. They didn't make an earnest movie. They didn't earn the humor, and it's just an unearned pile of trash.
There's a scene in what's it called? The Worst Movie Ever Made, the documentary about Troll 2.
Yeah, best first movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which is kind of heartbreaking almost because the director goes to a screening not knowing the response his film gets, and he got hurt.
Yeah.
They showed a shot of him leaving the theater, and he looked honestly like insulted and sad at what had happened. It's like, that's part of why Troll 2 works so well, like you were just saying, works so well as a bad movie, is he thought he was making a really good film.
Yeah, and the guys who made this knew they're making something shitty and didn't even care. But even like some people know them. Like I don't think Bruno Mattei knew he knew he was making bad movies, but he cared about it enough.
Oh yeah,
that it made it interesting to watch. Like that's why Rats is so much fun, or Robo War or what have you. These guys, there's just like, we need a paycheck, we'll move on to this, we'll do the next thing, which makes something like this a real slog to get through. When you're sitting there with my wife watched it with me for some reason. I said I watch it on my own. She's like, no, I'll watch it. And we were just sitting there just waiting and waiting and waiting to laugh. Which, like, the first laugh we got in the movie is when she took out her phone, started looking at memes and started showing them to me. But like,
waiting to laugh, the date movie story.
But I did actually, going back to what I said earlier, like I did laugh actually by 5 times in all the movie. Outside that meme was the bike you mentioned. I actually laughed at when Hitch was showing the various loves of Ben Affleck. That's an easy joke, but it worked. And then probably the carousel with the cherry stem. Actually, that was a joke. I actually landed, but because it wasn't a reference, it was just a thing. But have any of you guys seen They Come Together from like 2009, I think it is? It's also a date movie satire, but it's from...
is that the one with Amy Schumer? Not Schumer.
It's Amy Poehler and...
Amy Poehler, and Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd, yeah. It's from David Wayne, and it does the same concept, but lands, because it's a parody of romantic comedies, and it works out really well. It's not really well received, but my wife and I really like it. We've watched it a couple times, and halfway through the movie, she's like, "Can we watch that instead?"
So, what's the body count in that one?
Huh? Yeah, there's it's about 45 minutes of a cat shitting, and then Amy Poehler and Paul Rudd's shooting each other.
The sad part is when somebody does a parody movie of such a rich subject. Romantic comedies, especially after the Sleepless in Seattle, hit such a beat thing. They all hit that same kind of beat for years. And it's like, boy wants girl, maybe he does, he doesn't, then he gets her, but then he kind of doesn't want to get her. And things go bizarrely wrong, and he makes a mistake and has to run after her, or she has to run after him in the third act. it's all easily parody, but they couldn't. Like, work harder. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
You get paid a lot of money.
Formula. That's why they came together. It worked well because it does the same thing, but does it with earnesty and someone who actually understands how humor works, like David Wayne, who made The State, a bunch of other really funny people. But when you get something like this, that just falls flat on its face. I know I had mentioned out of scenes before. Did any of y'all watch this at any point in the past, or is this the first time for y'all?
First time.
I mean, I think this is actually a movie I bought on the clearance rack from Hollywood Video way back when they existed, but I don't remember this movie. So either I didn't get around to watching it, which that's a glorious win for me, or I did something to cause trauma after watching it, so I wouldn't remember.
Yeah, you texted me as soon as it ended. It's like, all right, now I need to put a hole in my head. I'm like, after 3 o'clock, you can wait to 4 o'clock to do so. It's like if you spent the 45, it's actually like 70 minutes for those credits roll, to watch it. You just take time to talk about it for a little bit.
Wow, 70 minutes, and with the beginning one that we added, 6 pad the runtime moments. 6.
At least, yeah.
I would say 90 minutes of pad the runtime moment.
Plus, like the 12 minutes of end credits.
Yeah, of that.
And it hit that point where the King Kong joke or whatever. I'm going, well, this seems like the end, but there's still like 10 or 12 minutes left. And the credits start to roll. I was like, oh Jesus!
And then some outtakes, and then finished. And I got up, used the bathroom, came back.
Their bloopers sucked. Even it's like, how do you not have funny bloopers? These are funny people, most of them at least.
When I'm watching a spoof, I shouldn't want to turn it off and watch the movies that they're spoofing instead.
Yeah. Well, it's a movie that doesn't understand the tropes of the genre, which is why it doesn't work as a spoof. It's just people being like, do you remember that moment? It's like the kid who hears the funny comment in the class and he's like, remember when you said that joke yesterday? You're like, yeah, no, I was there for that. And that joke just does it. It Gus Van Sant's and just recreates entire scenes. And then it's like that, but with like we added a fart joke to it.
And Psycho was funnier.
Hey! How about we don't vote for Pedro, guys? You remember that reference?
Yeah, that's it. This guy's Aaron Seltzer's whole cottage industry here with what is it? Date movie, epic movie, Meet the Spartans, disaster movie, Vampire Sucks, The Starving Game, Best Night Ever, and Superfast.
Yeah, boy. I don't know the back couple of those, but I'm pretty sure.
And if I'm not mistaken, Superfast had the same budget as John Wick, the first John Wick.
Wow.
And it looks utterly terrible.
I can't say I even heard of Superfast. And
the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Kind of thing.
Without directly seeing that. Yeah, I've saw, I think, epic movie and superhero movie, and I think maybe I saw Meet the Spartans. I don't know. I definitely didn't spend any money on any of them, but I had a lot of dumb friends who wanted to see them, so I did. And plus, I see literally almost everything that comes out, and which also, like on the same note, is like so many of the references I don't remember what they were referencing. Like it's kind of like that was slightly maybe this, and I see like just about everything and tend to recall what I've watched. So many of these references of this probably were stale already in 2006, let alone now.
Well, I mean, when Harry Met Sally came up in like 89 or something,
yeah,
something along those lines. I mean, granted, it's a famous scene, but you're going to want to set that scene up, like you said earlier, and make it pay off if you're going to get people to remember it. But no, just here, some guy faking an orgasm. Enjoy.
I don't think there's any references that I missed, but they were just, it was like, hey, remember this movie? That is actually much better.
Yeah, like a couple of them, like I had to like think for a second to kind of go back in like Sweet Home Alabama with the picking of the ring scene. It's like I know I've seen this in a movie, but I can't remember what movie it was until kind of like playing through in my head, like, oh, Reach for the Spoon. There we are.
You put more work into this movie, watching this movie, than I did.
They even threw a short dodgeball reference in there.
That was
Yes.
very bizarre. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know why it happened. And that Kill Bill sequence, I wanted to end almost immediately, and they just kept going with it. So, kudos to them for sticking to everything.
That was pad the runtime number 4. Was the Kill Bill
back and reference the Carl's Jr. Hardee's commercial again and again.
Yeah, well, that was the number 3, which is also in case you don't get that there's a bunch of sex euphemisms here, we're going to loop the word sex over this.
Sexy sex.
That helps me feel I paid even less attention because I did not catch that at all.
And then almost immediately,
inebriated to get through this.
Fortunately, we have no alcohol here currently, so I had to watch it on its own.
And then almost immediately after that, we're going to go ahead and do some jokes about partner abuse because that's a great funny topic to be approaching.
Yeah, ripe for humor. No.
Yeah, they're rolling in the aisles. I just couldn't stop myself. Like I immediately as soon as I finished, I'm like, I'm just gonna burn my copy of Naked Gun. I don't need any other parodies besides this movie.
This is it. This is the one true parody.
But the weird thing about mentioning Dodgeball in there is that Dodgeball is another satire.
Yes.
So,
and a good one.
Yes.
Well, it's like when people were parodying Scream with Shriek, If I You Know What I Did Last Summer. It's like, Scream is already a parody. Why are you parodying a parody? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and Scary Movie almost works because there is a little more effort in that one than, say, Shriek. But that's the thing. Is like referencing the same thing that they're referencing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Scary Movie is basically kind of a reboot of Scream. It goes over, and that's why I'd say it works a little bit better, is because it's more going after the tropes like Scream did.
Yeah, to a slightly bigger degree in different ways, and maybe more on the nose references, but it's not. There's less. Hey, do you remember this stuff? Than that, like.
Yeah, and you don't have to watch 50 other movies in order to understand all the reference material.
Or read every tabloid magazine that comes through there.
Like the scene that I think works to show Scary Movie actually kind of working as satire of a satire is when she comes downstairs and he's trying to hide and you keep seeing his feet. That's something that does work because it's kind of looking at that same situation in a slightly different way because that wouldn't land in Scream.
Well, and as an audience, you know those tropes, too, of the killer hiding, and I think that's why that works, is you have the history of that trope, and audiences are well aware enough of that trope. Date movie doesn't do tropes, it just does pop culture.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it just falls flat on its face.
Yeah, that's why a movie like Galaxy Quest, that's kind of making fun of Star Trek, doesn't feel like it remotely is. It feels like a loving comedy about Star Trek and works so well. Because
it's a great tribute that it's my third favorite Star Trek movie.
Okay, I'd see that.
If I rank Star Trek movies, I put Galaxy Quest right up there with it.
It's also got some great fuck William Shatner moments in there.
But that shows how bad this movie is if we slid away into talking about other movies instead.
I like Galaxy Quest enough that I actually watched it in Thermion.
Oh, nice.
I thought about doing that because I know it's one of the audio tracks, but I can't say
it's actually really hilarious just because that you then understand that they actually voiced the entire movie again.
Nice.
Did they do the whole track in that way, or is this kind of
yes?
Sometimes they do it as a joke where they're like 5 minutes and then it's stop.
No, it is the entire movie. They tracked and voiced the entire thing in Thermion.
That's
I really appreciate that kind of dedication.
Yes. I think another underrated parody, while we're going off subject, Top Secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Holy shit.
Also,
that's Zucker Brothers too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's still
1984, I think.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it's like, so did you guys you didn't listen to the Date Movie and the Jinx shitting track? But they replaced all the actors with the cat pooping?
This is where we wanted to stick another cat pooping scene, but we had to cut it for time because we had, these other scenes where we had to stretch a joke into 5 minutes.
We didn't have the character development for the second fart, so we decided to leave it on the cutting room floor. It was a hard decision.
Yeah, we figured that one more was just a little bit too much.
Well, and the weird thing about this movie is it doesn't feel like these movies should be ripe with improv, and this movie feels like they had a Coen Brothers grasp on the dialogue. They're like, this is funny enough. Don't change it. Trust us, we're the funny guys. You leave that in.
Right.
So it was bizarre that it stuck so much to the script, it felt like.
I think that's more of everybody there was there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? I am not interested in trying to punch this up at all. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do my lines, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to roll in the pile of money.
Oh, Lord.
I think we've pretty much covered everything there is to say about Date Movie.
Oh, no, we could keep going.
Far more nerves.
I like one of my comments that I sent to you was like, I was thinking, at least this isn't a fucking musical.
And that's right before the musical sequence, I believe, right?
Yeah, right before the musical sequence started.
Yes.
It's like great timing. I was like, because you said that to me, I'm like, based on your last comment, you should be right at that scene. But then that happens in all those sort of things, That's also, a trope of that genre is randomly singing that particular song too. And I think for My Best Friend's Wedding, I think. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, also, how would you not know who is officiating your fucking wedding?
So you make one more Tony Cox joke.
The weirdest part in this movie for me, and it was a really small moment, and it was when Allison Hannigan was going to go meet Hitch, and for some reason, the card was real, but the text on the card was very clearly a computer-generated image, and I can't get past that they didn't have enough money to put ink on a card to have it as a prop, that they just gave her a blank card and we're like, well, we'll add it in post.
Well, if we get a better joke to put on the card, we can just do it that way.
Fix it in post. You know how that works.
Well, what if we think of a parody name for Hitch? Because there's nothing we could change Hitch into that might rhyme with it to call him instead.
Yeah.
Nothing right there on the grasp.
And we didn't even reference the friggin' West Coast Customs, body mod sequence.
Oh, that was rough. That was real, like, listen, here's our message. Just get thinner.
Yeah.
That was
being fat is wrong.
It's like so many jokes that just never, ever stop. And eventually, luckily, they do. Yeah, it's like, but this moves so slow, and that's the thing. That, like, it said you messaged me yesterday saying there's still a half an hour left. It's like, and the same thing Allison said when I paused it. I'm like, when I paused it, go grab my notebook. She's like, wait, how much longer is left of this shit? Because we thought it was coming to its end, and we were hoping it was coming to its end, but it never does.
It is the longest 70 minutes.
Yes.
Like it is literally the shortest a movie can be, and it is still like longer than Lord of the Rings extended edition.
It feels like it.
That movie is like when your mom's like, listen, I got to talk to some friends, but wait by the car. I'll be out in a second. You're like, it's been 3 hours. Mom, where are you?
It's like you're at work, you're waiting to get counted out, and the manager's taking the time. It's like a place to
have
be.
that bad writing problem where they're like, okay, let's parody. This is kind of near the end, but let's parody it here in the middle. And, here's another ending we're parodying in the middle. It's like, this feels like we're getting near the end. Oh, no.
And a bold move to have a flashback sequence in your 70-minute movie to make sure that
in case you forgot some stuff.
In case you forgot all the stuff that you just saw.
So, and what's weird is I want to mention, like, on the so bad it's good thing is, like, normally when I watch a bad movie, which I watch a lot of bad movies, I go to IMDb and I'll read reviews that other people have written, and I'll find a bunch of really good ones that people like, critics suck, they don't know this. Like, nearly every single review for this is a 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. There's like maybe one defender, and that person gets up to a 6, and that's how you know something's really truly awful, is that half the reviews aren't 10 out of 10s. People saying, "No, this is funny. Critics don't know shit." The Metacritic community rating is like a 2.8. And
why even argue with it at that point? Who's the 6th person? Is like, it's not bad. Listen, it's okay.
I mean, it's no Serenity, but.
Yeah, we can say, let's see. This is the theatrical equivalent of a wet fart.
I don't know. Even wet farts have uses.
Actually,
Well,
that's
I guess we could say with this too, like this is a warning.
it's like, oh boy. It's like, yeah, what a junk. And I'm sorry you guys watched it for me. And I thank you so much for taking the time to rent the movie if you paid for it or found it illegally otherwise or however.
I have no comment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I did pay to rent it, so I was like, do I want to watch the unrated or the rated cut? Which one's long? Which one's shorter? End up doing the longer cut just so I have more material.
Which didn't help because it doesn't give you any more material.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what the differences are, and I don't want to know.
Yeah, I watched the unrated and I couldn't tell you if it was different than the rated.
Yeah, because it could have been PG-13 the way it was, because the movie itself was too. Maybe 20 seconds less of cat shit.
They probably didn't cut that. That was their money shot.
Yeah, as since we kept seeing Jinxie again, so.
This movie is bad enough that now I kind of hate Scary Movie because it being made was the reason why this was made.
But actually, I'm actually looking forward to next week's movie. Next week is also a pretty awful movie, but more entertaining. It's a 1997's Mortal Kombat Apocalypse, or what? Annihilation. Annihilation. Sorry.
You killed my master.
That movie is an absolute piece of shit, but it's slightly entertaining in some ways of just how awful it gets. And I'll rewatch the first one again, which actually is a good movie. So
the first one has some entertaining bits. Annihilation is, I don't know what they were, whatever it's called. It's just rough.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it, but at least I'm looking forward to watching it. Unlike this, when it pulled up, I'm like, well, shit. And on last week's episode, when talking about Veronica, and we were finishing up, and I mentioned what next week's was, and you can see like Jason, Seth, and Tony go, no. They all immediately noped out. I'm like, nope. It's like, call me again when you get something fun.
Tony was smart. Jason was smart.
But yeah, thank you guys again for talking about Date Movie for the last 45 minutes and watching it for 70-ish minutes yesterday.
Yeah, 2 days.
Watched it. And if you want to be back on, let me know. I'm, of course, doing this weekly, and each week I'll post what the next movie is. And since you're already be on it, you get kind of first dibs. So if you want to be on Mortal Kombat, let me know. If you're not, it's totally cool. So it's pretty much open invitation for whatever week's going on. Any final comments before we wrap up the episode?
Don't watch this movie.
I think that's a good summation of it.
I did not realize that was a cat behind you this entire time.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I thought it was like a pillow, and I was like, nope, it's moving.
It is a pillow. It just moves sometimes.
I get it.
I mean, they didn't give us any resolution, so why should we give it any resolution?
Eric, do you want to tell us where you can find your podcast?
Oh yeah, Strange Eons Radio is available. Normally, our main episodes come out on Thursdays, but since we're all sitting around here wondering what to watch, we've been doing a couple extra episodes on Tuesdays and Saturdays that are just 15 minutes. Hey, here's something that's streaming, has to be available streaming, and check that out. We're at Strange Eons Radio, any place you get your podcasts.
Great horror and genre work there that you, Kelly, and Vanessa do. And Mike, are any of your videos online that we can check out?
Yeah, you can go to YouTube/OutWest Productions, and you'll find some fun videos there.
Nice.
Anything you want to plug, Mike? Amos? I know you just work, but come see Rocky.
No. yeah, go see Rocky Horror when quarantine's over.
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly. Thank you guys again for listening. Check out Eric's podcast, Strange Eons. Check out all of Mike's movies. They're great stuff.
Yes.
I really like Night of Living Trees from last year and Pod People from this year.
Yes, that was good.
Cool things. And the one where you're in the woods by yourself, I can't remember what it's called right now, but I like.
Bring the Remains. That was it.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, I really like that. And then, of course, you can find the Worst Movie of the Year at theworstmovieoftheyear.transistor.fm or on the various streaming sites, however you found us. Find us there. We'll be on iTunes soon. Or if you're coming to us from City of Geek, we'll have our own setup here soon, but also subscribe to City of Geek and cityofgeek.com. thank you guys again for listening. Thank you guys for speaking to me today, and hope you have a good rest of your quarantine.
Thank you.
You too.
It can't be any worse than my morning watching
Watching
this.
this movie.